Well, President Biden, if you haven't been paying attention, just approved another $24 billion for Ukraine because they need it. But where is all that money going, you may ask? Don't ask that question, because the government sure as hell isn't. It's going, though, into the pockets of corrupt. Don't. Yeah, don't ask that question. But it is going into the pockets of Ukrainian government officials, corrupt Ukrainian government officials, by the way.
Nope, that wasn't right.
Corrupt Ukrainian government officials. Yeah, anyway, they're corrupt. And it's going in their pockets. So I'll just take out that word in between and make it easier on myself. Put a pin in that for a second. Back in March, though, we showed you how Ukraine was dragging men off the streets and throwing them into the front lines. And, of course, at the time, this was touted by Ukrainians saying, hey, no, this is Kremlin propaganda. Like, this is Kremlin propaganda, what you're seeing here. This isn't really happening. Don't listen to what Moscow is telling you. Don't listen to independent journalists who are covering the story and actually reporting what's happening to these men who are being rounded up at cafes. And if they're of military fighting age, or even if they're not, it doesn't matter. They're going to be thrown into the meat grinder. Even mentally handicapped individuals, people with disabilities. One man we featured here on the show who literally has a degenerative spinal condition, can barely even walk. Here's a mom. Remember this scene where this mom is like, no, please get out of my car. I'm not letting you take my son. Her son is in the car sitting in the back seat. And the mom is like, no, please, you're not getting him out of the car. And the police officers show up and say, sir, what are you doing here? This is our jurisdiction. We're the police. You members of the military have no right to be taking these men. Excuse me, sir, get out of here. So this is well reported. We covered this pretty deeply here on the show. Many of these men had physical disabilities. And basically, we also discussed how Ukrainians were bribing recruitment officials to avoid being dragged away. Again, it wasn't just our report. I mean, this was Wall Street Journal reporting. Here's the Wall Street Journal. Officials last week denied that Ukraine denied this, that untrained mobilized troops were being sent to battle unprepared, though they said the length of military training has been squeezed into a shorter period of time due to the war. That's Kremlin propaganda. Continues to spread fakes and myths. Deputy Defense Minister Hanna Maliar said in a Telegram post. Several soldiers interviewed by the Wall Street Journal near Bakhmut last week said they had been sent to battle within days of being called up. Others said they've received several weeks of training. And then, of course, the Wall Street Journal went on to explain more of the corruption and the payments and the bribes. But that's Kremlin propaganda. Okay, remember that. That's Kremlin propaganda, according to Ukraine. Well, it turns out, I guess the Kremlin propagandists were correct, because it wasn't Kremlin propaganda at all. Ukraine just confirmed it themselves. According to Barron's, Zelensky fires the head of military enlistment in all Ukrainian regions. Ukrainian President Vladimir Zelensky on Friday dismissed officials responsible for military conscription in every region of the country, citing corruption allegations that he said could amount to treason. We are dismissing all. They're not just one. All of them are corrupt. We're dismissing all of the military commissars. The system should be run by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery at a time of war is high treason. Kyiv has been conscripting Ukrainians for assault battalions for its counteroffensive against Russian forces to recapture territory controlled by Moscow's troops. Turns out that billions of dollars have gone into the pockets of corrupt government officials. You know, the ones responsible for the men being dragged off the streets, thrown into the meat grinder on the front lines.
Put that back up. It says that last screen.
From Barron's?
Yeah. The move reflects Ukraine's efforts to clamp down on graft. What do they mean by that?
Like the amount of money being taken, bribes. I mean, being taken, paying people off. Like you're paying off these officials, right? I mean, that's how I read it, right? I mean, yeah.
Isn't that like
Did they mean
grift? Yeah, maybe that's the wrong word, right?
Is graft?
Graft is not.
Isn't the past tense of grift? I don't know. But anyway, I guess look it up.
I did look it up, and I don't see a definition that would fit in there. But okay, I'm sorry to derail. I just wondered what that was, and they should stop that.
It's an intent improperly to influence official action need not be alleged or proved, as it must be in bribery. Graft involves compensation for service performed in an official manner.
Didn't know that word.
That's what I said. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
So Anyway, it turns out that billions of dollars have been grafted.
Got it.
Into the pockets of corrupt Ukrainian government officials. Cui bono. The ones responsible for dragging men off the streets, throwing them into the meat grinder of the front lines. 33 government recruitment officials were fired. 33 of them. In all of the conscription territories. 113 crimes were charged. 113 crimes. That's more than Hunter Biden. On Friday, Zelensky... 100
more, to be exact.
Yeah, 100 more than Hunter Biden. 100 more, if you're keeping track at home. On Friday, Zelensky explained that...
110 more. Sorry.
Okay.
113.
On Friday, Zelensky explained that the investigation resulted in 33 officials overseeing conscription being charged with these 113 crimes. He said during the inspection of the territorial recruitment centers, law enforcement officials exposed cases of corruption, in particular during the general mobilization, he said, which poses a threat to Ukraine's national security and undermines confidence in state institutions. Is there confidence in Ukraine's state institutions? Like, it'd be interesting to see what the Ukrainian people and how they feel about their own government state institutions. Do they have confidence in it? Because apparently this is being undermined.
I mean, that's so nice, except that new conscription laws say that you can literally go into people's apartment buildings and ask the property management who lives here and go and find them. So,
well, you even under the DIA app, we've covered the DIA app that is now rolled out digitally. So every Ukrainian has access to this app, this application, which rules their life, tracking everything, right?
Yeah.
And of course, the United States behind it, and USAID and everything pushing this massive app to make sure everything is tracked in Ukraine. And in the DIA app, of course, you can snitch on your neighbors. You can rat them out. There's a feature that they openly promoted, and we featured here on the show, where you can literally say that you believe your neighbor is a Russian sympathizer. Like, John, he didn't pick up his trash in the yard. I'm going to label him a Russian sympathizer and watch the security forces swoop into his house. You can literally do that in Ukraine. Now Zelensky is taking matters into his own hands, though, and pretending to be outraged. I love this faux outrage. It's like a good actor. Right? They conducted this investigation. We didn't know this was happening. We conducted this investigation. We're rooting out corruption here. The investigation is revealing numerous abuses, he says, and they're frankly revolting. He is pissed. Listen.
I wish you health, fellow Ukrainians. I have just held a meeting of the National Security and Defense Council, a special one. The key issue was the results of the inspection of the military commissars. Reports were delivered by the State Bureau of Investigation, the Security Service of Ukraine, the Ministry of Internal Affairs, the Prosecutor General, the National Agency on Corruption Prevention, and the National Anti-Corruption Bureau, comprehensively. In total, there are already 112 criminal proceedings against officials of the territorial recruitment centers. 33 suspects, regional, city, and district military commissars, employees of the military medical commissions, other officials, abuses in different regions, Donetsk, Poltava, Vinnytsia, Odessa, Kyiv, Lviv. Some took cash, some took cryptocurrency. That's the only difference. The cynicism is the same everywhere. Illicit enrichment, legalization of illegally obtained funds, illegal benefit, illegal transportation of persons liable for military service across the border. Our decisions are the following. We are dismissing all regional military commissars. This system should be run by people who know exactly what war is and why cynicism and bribery in times of war constitute treason. Instead, warriors who have gone through the front line or who cannot be in the trenches because they have lost their health, lost their limbs, but have retained their dignity and have no cynicism are the ones who can be entrusted with this system of recruitment. This decision is to be implemented by Commander-in-Chief Zelensky. The new heads of territorial recruitment centers will be vetted by the Security Service of Ukraine before their appointment. Every military commissar against whom there is a criminal investigation will be held to account. Absolutely fair, in full. If the dismissed military commissars and other officials wearing shoulder marks against whom no evidence of crimes or violations has been found want to keep their shoulder marks and prove their dignity, they should go to the war front. However, I emphasize that the army is not and will never be a substitute for criminal punishment. Officials who confuse their shoulder marks with profits will definitely stand trial. The issue of the military medical commissions. Now, this system is not working decently.
And he goes on to talk about that. So they're really going to root out this corruption. And, we're going to make sure we're going to vet. This time we're going to vet the people. who are in charge of all of these different regional offices basically implies that we didn't vet them the first time. So all of these people, every one of them, he says, was stealing American money. All of them. The millions, the billions that we've sent to them, flowing right into the pockets of these people. And we reported it here, and the Wall Street Journal reported it, and others have reported it, and it was considered Kremlin propaganda. Was it Kremlin propaganda back months ago when they also fired a huge swath of his inner circle for corruption? Oh, we got rid of all of them. It's all clean now. Oh, you did? Okay. So then months later, now you get rid of another 33 and file 112 to 113 criminal charges against them for stealing American money, flowing right into their pockets. But even beyond the money, forget the money for a second, because America just prints and makes up fake money anyway. Think about the men that are being rounded up and thrown into this meat grinder. And certain people can get paid off so they don't have to go. But people who don't have the means, these poor Ukrainian boys who don't have the means, who are just being grabbed, thrown in, or some men who are studying at university, being taken right out of their college classes and being thrown into the meat grinder and dying, being killed. I mean, the army is basically destroyed. So this is a death sentence. This is a death sentence. And what is it? It's amazing to me to see these men, these conscriptors who are going around grabbing these people who aren't then going to the front lines. It's like they get a free pass. Like, because they probably are paid off in some way with these guys. All of them are corrupt. So they get the cushy job of being the conscription people that can go into Kyiv and go into these bars and nightclubs and cafes and grab these men and throw them in to fight this NATO war. That's at the heart of this. And it's just absolutely disgusting. But don't worry. We've rooted out the corruption now in Ukraine. I just find the timing of all of this very, very weird, don't you? I mean, 24 billion goes there. Like, what's happening? Why suddenly are we hearing about this? They've been annihilated on the battlefield. Like, is this some sort of a provision from NATO? Like, hey, we need you guys to clean this up because the word has gotten out. The Wall Street Journal is reporting on this. The New York Times has even covered this corruption. When it's in the New York Times, then we got to do something about it, guys.
Yes, but, corruption is not a new thing in Ukraine. In fact,
No.
The IMF in 2014, when the war on the Donbass began, the IMF started warning them, you better knock this off. You're spending $1 million a day to bomb these people. Stop it, because it's affecting your ability to pay back. We don't want to fund a war. And they warned about it for 6 years. And then in 2021, they finally just said, we can't offer you any more loans. And then, next year, they get all this money because the whole world's willing to give money to Ukraine now that the IMF is no longer. Interesting timing, right?
Yeah, it's unbelievable. And, an entire generation of young men just killed because of this corruption in this phony proxy war. Thank you so much for watching this segment here at Redacted. We are live every day at 4 p.m. Eastern Time, trying to share the stories that the mainstream media will not cover. You should also come over and join our community of Redacted Rebels over at redacted.inc. That's our private locals community where we can share exclusive content that we simply cannot share here on YouTube. Come over and join the rebellion together right now by going to redacted.inc. We'll see you next time.